All right, I am joined by my guest this week, Mr. Eric Danis, the president of the GPI. It's a very exciting time. We're less than 2 months away from the Global Poker Awards, going to take place in Las Vegas on March 6th at PokerGO Studio. Eric, I know that you've got to be pretty excited for this next edition of the Global Poker Awards. Going to be a little different than last year's because there's been a lot of changes.
Yeah, a lot of changes, Chad. First of all, thank you for taking me back on for the Fantasy Poker Manager reunion. It's been a few years since we've done videos together. But yeah, excited. I think tired is the exact word right now. Stressed and tired, but in a few weeks we'll be stress-free and really to see who gets nominated for this year's award.
I know one thing that I appreciate that you guys did this year as opposed to last year was giving us, both the poker world and fans, a little more notice this time around. Last year was kind of the Global Poker Awards came together, were announced about a month in advance. Here we've had several months so that we can prepare. Was that a conscious effort on your guys' part to try to get the word out a little sooner?
It's actually a total tip of the cap to PokerGO. We've never wanted to announce awards at the last minute. Sadly, when it comes to sponsorship and such, it does take a long time. And when I met with Sam Simmons of PokerGO again this summer, we both agreed that the first order of business was to announce the awards as early as possible. And we both committed to it, sponsor or not, the awards are going to take place. You have no idea how, even for us, the difference it makes. Everything is well prepared. We'll be, weeks in advance ready to go, and we'll be able to add to what is already an exciting show. We're hoping that that extra time will help us work with Maury and the PokerGO team to really put out a great product. So again, not to bore you with any of the details, but it was never the intention to announce last minute like we've always had. And a huge tip of the cap to Sam Simmons, who said, I agree with you. These need to be announced as soon as possible. And we thought that a month ago was a perfect time, right before the holiday break, to announce that we were coming back and we have a lot more time. And it gives more time for voting. It allows us to make these procedures a bit more, not complex, because I don't want to intimidate anyone who's about to vote, but more proper and there's more thought behind it. Again, when you announce an award show 5 weeks in advance, you don't have much time to say, hey, we're going to do it this way, we're going to do something different this year. So really a huge change in the landscape for us in the office. Chad, we work on these 12 months a year, but it's always, once it's announced is when the real race begins. Lucky enough this year, it's 12, 13, 14 weeks in advance, and not 5 or 6 like in previous years.
One of the biggest changes that has happened, and you can read about this on globalpokerindex.com, there's all sorts of information about the Global Poker Awards, is the voting process. It has been refined, and I can tell that you guys have put a lot of thought and effort into this voting process. I know there was some criticisms from last year's awards, and I can't help but imagine that this is in response to that. I know after last year's awards, you said that there would be some changes, and we do have them.
Yeah, we had been contemplating changes. We really like the process that the leagues like the NBA, the NHL, FIFA with their Ballon d'Or, the way they do a process with first, second, and third place voting. We like that concept. We've liked it for a few years. We didn't really want to tinker with tradition. Traditionally, the awards do come from Europe, and in Europe, in many cases, the Cannes Film Festival, for example, it's much more, a bunch of people in a room determining the fate of the winners and the losers. And you've been part of that process, Chad, in Malta. It's cool. It's great at first. It was exciting. The first few years, I was excited to be part of that jury and determine who wins and who loses. But a few things happened with poker. One, actually, outside of poker, I saw last year with the negative flag, and it was deserved. A bit weird that it was all focused on us when people vote for the awards, not us. But that's fine. I mean, we're the ones, putting this on. We trust the people voting. We obviously made, bad decisions in allowing people to vote, possibly in categories they weren't comfortable voting in. And that's a lot of the feedback I've gotten. people do respect the process and still wanted to vote. They didn't want to say, I don't want to vote because I don't know. They really tried their best. So, I don't blame anyone voting. So, but last year was tough. And even after the awards, there was a few controversies that were, I'll say, made up, that had nothing to do with the voting process. But it was tough on the jury. Maria Ho, Jimmy Kirsten, for example. These people take it to heart, and you've been part of this process, Chad. Last year we spent about 5 hours in the jury room, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous for me to ask for that much time from these people that have lives and money to make. But they did take it seriously, so I really felt the need with that. But it's also that poker has become, especially the awards, are so much more specialized than they were year one, or even 17 years ago in Europe. It was easy back then. It was a few player awards, one media award, and that was it. Now we've set it up that it's a bit more complex, a bit more complex, with the categories we have, and we just didn't follow up with the voting process. And we really feel this year we did exactly what we intended to do. Again, time constraints did cause, for the most part, us not coming up with the voting process, which, by the way, was written for the most part about 2 years ago. So, it's been in our minds. It's something we wanted to do. And last year was just a trigger for us to obviously make the change. There's no pleasure that I take in not seeing Brad Owen not nominated, someone that's one of the best at his craft. Now, if this year he's not nominated when about 30 of his peer members are voting for that award, well, that's justified. Those are people saying, great job, Brad, but there's a new generation of vloggers out there, and we have a list in the back office of about 40 of them right now. So, this way I'll feel better about what we do when I get to sleep, when we announce the nominations in about 2 or 3 weeks time now.
Let's talk a little bit about the new voting process. Without going into each minute detail, can you give us a little bit of a breakdown of what might be different from this year compared to last year's?
Yeah, one of the things that we noticed was that, when we first did the voting, and I think when you were in Malta, it was the same process. There was not even a short list. So people would show up or people would get a ballot and would have to think of names. So we adjusted that a few years ago. We had a short list. What we've done now is that, but even with the short list, when people got their ballots, some lists, journalists, for example, there's 50 names on there. That's a bit overwhelming when you have to pick, 2 out of 50. So what we've come up with is still that process of a preliminary list. And we're actually right now, we're on Twitter social media, asking fans. We'll be asking all the voters starting tomorrow for more names as well. So we have really, really, a ton of names on the list. So with that, we wanted an opening round of voting. I guess before I should say that each category now has its own voting panel. Those are the people that are going to decide who wins in the end. There's no more jury process. So let's say there's 50 people voting for Vlogger of the Year. Those 50 people will be responsible for determining the winner. So the preliminary round is to really dwindle down that list. Ideally, I'd like to see 8 to 10 finalists on that final ballot. If it's more, it's great. We're going to use a concept that the Oscars are using to see how that goes, because we don't have previous year's data. We don't know exactly how people vote. So it's easy to say if you have 50% of the votes in the first round, you go in the final ballot. Well, we don't know what that means. That could be 17 names, or it could be just 5 names. So we're going to ensure that each final ballot, has at least 8 names on it. And, that'll be the final vote. So preliminary round to figure out who the finalists are. Then the voters, like you, Chad, will receive a second ballot cleaned up with only the finalists. And from there, every voter will pick their first, second, and third preferred choices, 5 points, 3 points, 1 point to the three people. With that, we tabulate the votes. We announce the final 4, and the winner is announced March 6th at the PokerGO Studio.
I like it. I'm looking forward to it. As you mentioned, I took part in what was the European Poker Awards. Of course, the European Poker Awards and the American Poker Awards have now been combined into the Global Poker Awards. But yeah, it was a few years back. I was part of that process. Walt, I was over in Europe, and it was a lot of fun, sitting in the jury room and debating things. But, having seen these changes, I do think that this is a much better process. I think it's going to result in, I guess the most deserving and the right winners based upon their peers. And I like how you've really boiled it down to having people who are knowledgeable about categories, having a say in it, because there are some people who I know who have voted in the past, and it's not just for the Global Poker Awards, mind you. I know the Poker Hall of Fame is similar in some regards, where there are some people who have been around the poker world for a long time who get a vote, but they just might not be up to speed with certain aspects of the poker industry, like vlogging, like streaming, and things like that. So I definitely think that this has been a big improvement. Another big improvement, I think, is the new categories. There's going to be 25 trophies awarded this year, which might seem a lot, but I think personally, I think it's necessary. And a great example of that is one that is applicable to me and a lot of people here at PokerNews, which is media content. Right, so I know in the past, media content, the one category might have included an article, might have included a video or a photo, and those are very different pieces of content. So I think rightfully so, you guys have now decided to break that up into 3 different awards. For best written media content, best video, best photo. I'll just say kudos to it. I think that was a brilliant move.
Yeah, thanks. And it's still not perfect, right? There's still going to be books against articles, for example, in the written content. But one of the things we want to focus on, we always try to focus on, is that the players should be the most rewarded at the awards. Without the players, none of us are around. So, we always try to make sure, and we've added a lot of fun player awards again this year. But there was a need for a split in the media content. And you're right, 25 awards is a lot, and we're going to figure that out. We're going to work through that. Maybe it's 27 next year. It can happen. I think the more things go, the more people want to see who wins. And also, it does create more stories for people like you to write about, for people to be interested in. It's not just a whole jumble in the media content category, for example. And we do want to make sure that people that write and people that take amazing photos. I've seen submissions for the photo of the year that are glorious, and I miss, and I am really into poker content, but I miss, a lot of them. So, and then of course the video, which is also has some really fun, there's some strategy stuff. There's some really fun videos on there. So really trying to expand it by rewarding the more people, the better in our industry. That's very small, but it does have a ton of talented people in it.
In 25 awards, it may seem a lot, but it's still like a quarter or less than a quarter of the number of WSOP bracelets that are awarded each year. So
true.
There's that.
Maybe we'll match that number next year. Yeah.
I do have a question regarding content, so let's take a video for instance, the video category. Now, does it have to be one video that would be considered, or would you consider like Joey Ingram, for instance, and his whole investigation of the Mike Postle cheating allegations that spanned several videos, but was really just one topic? What's the differentiation there?
It is one video. So for Joey, for example, what's been submitted is his first in-depth, analysis of Postle's hands. So that's one example. The Big Blind is another example of a series of shows that they selected one episode for nomination. And the reason, Chad, is that it does become a bit unfair territory. There are some one-offs that are spectacular, and you'll see when you see the list of the people on of the videos on the prelim list. There's some stuff that is just fantastic that probably wouldn't have a chance against a whole series of videos, or against the power that is PokerGO, for example, that can put out a whole season of episodes. And really, how do you judge one against the other? So, we always know that the voters will vote the way they feel, right? It's in your gut in the end. So some voters might say, Joey deserves to win because he did put in, not only for that episode, but all of that volume. We're telling the voters, you should be concentrating on this one piece of work, but you can't control how people vote. So it's in the mind of the voters, and we'll leave it up to them. But yes, in this instance, it is one submission. Same for photos. Some have photo blogs. from the World Series, for example. Drew Amato comes to mind, and we've asked them or forced them to select one photo from 2019 for him and for all of his colleagues.
I know one of the People Choice Awards that will be handed out, I'm very excited about. I've actually seen some social media chatter about it, is the People's Choice for Hand of the Year. Poker fans are going to be playing a part in the voting process, and I don't know, I think it's just a pretty stellar award, if you will. I wish it was an award that dated back to, say, the first days of the World Series of Poker. I mean, how cool would it be to have that one hand? So I think it's really great that that's added. And what was the inspiration behind that category?
Just quickly, I do want to mention, because you did mention it, the fans have a huge hand in determining who wins this year. That's another major change.
Oh, yeah.
Fans will get a vote in each of the categories that are votable. So fans are also going to be involved in that process. So that's exciting for us as well, that we now have fans involved and they get their award, their voice is heard. Back to the hand of the year, it's funny, it's actually just a coffee with Donnie Peters 1 or 2 years ago, and Donnie said, hey, you guys need to do a hand of the year. And that was a great idea. I think that, I don't know how to explain it, but I think the change this year, the change in philosophy is let's have fun with it. I know that PokerGO, that's one of their things, is let's have fun with it. We looked at the UFC, what they do for awards, for example, and they do have some fun awards. It's not just, the serious awards. Who is the player of the year? What is the event of the year? It's time to have some fun. So I think with the fan involvement, that works. And hand of the year is exactly that. It's also an award that I personally couldn't care who wins, right? Because you'll see with the list, and the fans will see, there's so many different types of hands that can be the winner. So you could be someone that thinks that Stephen Chidwick is a mind reader and he deserves to win just because of the mind read. Or you could say Rick Solomon is just a crazy SOB. I want him to win. He's a cool guy. So there's so many different types of hands. It could be a terrible bad beat, which we've seen a few of them at the World Series, for example, this year. It could be John Juanda folding quads, in a Triton event. So there's really a lot there. So we're not looking for the best hand, and that's not the goal with this trophy. We really want it to be fans, take a look at these videos, and you decide, hey, this is just fun. This is a great hand. Or, you know what, I really think, again, the strategic, mind-bending, way of winning this pot, that deserves it. So it'll be up to the fans. So they will decide, they will let us know what they prefer. And it's really an exciting trophy. I can't wait to see who wins it again. I have 0 horses in the race in this one. I just can't wait to see what the fans decide. It'll be a fun award, and I'm glad that we have a few more of those in there as well this year.
Yeah, and I think it was great for you to bring up and point out how the fans will be participating in the awards, how they do have a big say, how that their combined, the fan vote will equal a vote in each of the categories. So really are going to have their fingers in each of the award pies, if you will. A couple of the awards have already been determined. That's the GPI Poker Player of the Year and the GPI Female Player of the Year for 2019. And, it's Alex Foxen again for the second year, which is just an incredible accomplishment. And then even one better 3 years in a row for Kristen Bicknell. And, there's a reason, I guess, we say that they're one of poker's power couples, because here they are again, I'm assuming coming back to Vegas and going to be taking home another award apiece.
Yeah, I think that the one of the best poker duos or couples is now dead. They are the poker couple of all time. I mean, it's just not even close, right? With all their results. For Chrissy, someone that I played poker with when we were playing underground games back in Ottawa, in the early years, about 20 years ago now. We're that old, so it's been a long time that I've known Chrissy, and just an incredible online grinder for the longest time, and made such a smooth transition to the live tournament scene, and just started destroying tournament after tournament. So really proud of her. 3 straight years. I know that Party Poker, her sponsor, are very excited about that as well. They made a great pick in signing her up a few years back, but just also a classy person, just a humble individual, and she'll rip your heart out at the poker table. But just someone that's very, very humble, and comes from small town Canada, and just great story there. So as you know, I'm very, very prone to those Canadians, Chad. So, that story is amazing. But, for Foxen, for Alex, it's just ridiculous. We had the most bananas player of the year race. It's not even close. The first year was with the GPI. Actually, I was just starting, so I wasn't even on staff yet. There was the Marvin Retmar, Dan Smith at APT Prague. They were switching first, just playing everything there and just switching first back and forth. This was different. This was players literally taking planes and going to Prague, and then as soon as they left in Prague, flying directly to Vegas to play. Not just the Five Diamond. Cale Burns was playing the Venetian. He was playing to win. He's playing to win that POY as well. We had, I believe, 4 lead changes in the last 10 days of the year, and this was the most out of control change. The morning of the Five Diamond final table, without giving him any point. Actually, those points wouldn't have counted if he had finished 6th. He would have finished, I believe, 11th or 12th on the POI race. So really, it was first or second he needed. And I was actually lucky enough, my wife and I had an event at the ARIA. So, of course, we skipped that event a little, we left that event a little quicker when we saw that it was three-handed and then heads up. So we went to see Alex win. And he told me that early November, he was really upset that he was so low in the POI. And he said, I told myself I'm winning POI second because I want to be the first ever to win POI twice. And he's done it 2 years in a row. And I've heard a few other podcasts discuss that this isn't over with Alex Foxen or Kristen Bicknell. A lot of times poker players, they'll play like crazy for 1 year, for 2 years, then, settle down a bit, maybe stay in Vegas half the year. These two are already at it, right? They're both in England, both in Nottingham. I'm sure they're both on a plane to Australia now, I would assume. So, with those two, it's just remarkable that it's been years now that they just traveled the circuit. And again, if you see them both, they're both young, they're both healthy, they're both super competitive and hungry. My dream is for Chrissy or someone else on the female side to win Female Player of the Year so that I can award Alex or someone else, the Male Player of the Year. So hopefully that someone, if a female player wins the overall title, so we can switch up the narrative a bit and hand a guy a Male Player of the Year trophy. And I wouldn't be shocked for it to happen with someone like Chrissy.
I assume that Alex and Chrissy will both be in Vegas for the awards. That's going to be Friday, March 6th. Let's talk a little bit about the actual award show itself and what that night is going to be like. For poker fans who might not have been there, I've actually never been out to the awards. Well, it's been at the PokerGO Studio. Like I said, I've been to the European Poker Awards, but never out there to the PokerGO Studio. I did watch it last year via PokerGO. I know that fans can watch it again this year on PokerGO. But what's the atmosphere like there when you're actually inside PokerGO Studio and these awards are happening?
It's always fun, the live portion of it is always fun. It's, I think for the people there, they're really excited. First of all, you see poker players and people in this industry clean up really well. Everyone's wearing suits. Everyone's wearing the most beautiful dresses. It really is fun to see because you just don't see it in poker much. So that's the first oddity that you see. But it's also, just a celebration of poker, and everyone there are either nominated or have won before or the big names in the game. So there's an excitement there. Everyone's, happy to be there. We try to make sure they're nice and lubricated, not too lubricated, but lubricated enough to make sure they have a good time. Our good friends at PokerGO make sure that the drinks are flowing at the PokerGO bar as well. So, but it is a good time. We don't want people that are losing to feel upset, and if they are, let's let them be upset once they leave the PokerGO Studio. Let's have a good time there. And it really is a fun occasion. I will say that it's something, the live experience, because of our first year in a studio last year, was a bit of a challenge, and it's something we'll look at to improve this year, because I can tell you that you can ask people that have been to the awards in LA, and there's been some pretty remarkable parties that ended up, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. So, I'd like to get that type of atmosphere back. It's a bit different, given that it's in a poker studio. But I mean, with the PokerGO people, I don't doubt that we'll be able to crank up the excitement a bit more this year.
I assume that you'll be doing some hosting duties during the award show?
Yeah, well, we'll try our best. I mean, I think there's already a lineup on the ARIA board if I'm going to cry or not, because I usually cry nowadays every time I do a speech in front of people. I take that from my father. I think as soon as I turned 40, I became my dad. So I'll try not to this year, although my parents are scheduled to be there for the first time. So I would put a lot of money on, on a few tiers coming up. But after that, I will leave it up to the experts and just enjoy the night. That's not true. I'd never enjoy it until it's over because there's a lot to do, and we want to make sure that everything is fine. You have no idea the anxiety, when it comes to envelopes and, all the back end stuff, the envelopes, the winners, usually that's Roland and I that do that, and Fabian, our financial guru in Malta. And we literally spend an hour looking at 20 envelopes to make sure that the right name is in the right envelope. Because of course the nightmare scenario is the wrong name, or B, the name being flipped, although it worked out pretty well for the Oscars. So I guess they didn't lose any viewership over that. But, that is always my main fear, or a trophy dropping or something else. And then after that, I tend to finally relax and undo the tie a bit.
Well, to poker fans out there that want to keep on top of the Global Poker Awards, once again, that's going to take place on Friday, March 6th, 2020, a little less than 2 months away at PokerGO Studio at ARIA. You can also keep tabs at globalpokerindex.com. We're bringing you updates on PokerNews.com, and then on Twitter at GPI. There will be plenty of updates. I'm very excited, Eric, to see the nominees and have the voting process get underway. Real quick, when can we expect that to happen?
It starts mid-week, so I'm expecting Wednesday, but maybe Thursday. But we're looking at a Wednesday release for the preliminary round, and that round should last about 5-6 days. So we should be done in a few weeks. So it's going to go pretty fast. It's already gone fast for us, but it's going to go even faster the next 2.5 weeks.
Perfect. There's a good chance if you're listening or watching this right now that the voting process is open. So like I said, check out globalpokerindex.com, at GPI on Twitter, and we will have updates on PokerNews.com. Eric, thank you very much for taking the time to discuss these awards with me.
Always a pleasure, Chad.